senior housing money, like renovations. So we've done, when the analysis has been part of housing, some of the visits. So that stay for an outside event. And then after this, we're going to another event. So it's our just short period, so we're kind of like go by the time we have yes, we had last week, and then he flies back early next week. So, which is kind of odd, because usually but this one, it's probably because of the holidays and stuff. So, we kind of a lot of that, like, it's been great, schools are out, so I was like, okay, this makes sense for us. Yeah.
Everybody good? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're here to announce the state of Connecticut has joined with 11 other states to sue the President of the United States, the Department of Homeland Security, the Secretary of Homeland Security, United States Customs and Border Control, the Trump administration, to stop them from this unlawful and unconstitutional and destructive tariffs chaos that's hurting people and families across Connecticut right now. And that is undermining the ability, in many cases destroying the ability of Connecticut families to put food on the table, to make the rent, pay the mortgage, to run small businesses, to run big manufacturing companies here in Connecticut, global, national security focused companies that build Black Hawks and jet engines, and of course, our nation's nuclear submarine fleet. I went to a big box store yesterday because, as you may know, if you follow my social media, I am an amateur carpenter because there's nobody else in my house to do it. I am also tech support in my house, which means I unplug the router and plug it back in when the roots are in. But I went to the big box store because we had to install some screen porch doors. And I hung the doors successfully, but I have to trim them out. And I went to the lumber aisle and I was looking for 1x8, 8-foot boards, finger joint boards. And I almost jumped out of my shoes when I saw the price. I bought these boards before, just a few months ago. They were much more affordable. It felt like at least double, maybe 3 times the price. And this is happening across Connecticut anytime we go into the store. And by the way, I am concerned about price gouging, and I am concerned about businesses taking advantage, retail businesses taking advantage, and wholesalers and distributors of Connecticut consumers taking advantage of this tariff mess to charge even more money. So we're focused on that too. I hope that's not happening. But, you go to your local supermarket, you buy goods and services, you go buy a pair of shoes. I think somebody said it's 87% more for shoes and 65% more for clothing in the short term. And if you have 3 teenagers like I do, 19, 16, 13, that's a huge burden. Food prices, car prices, 12% in the short term, 50% in the longer term. It is said, statistics show that, analysis shows that people in Connecticut, families will pay an average effective tariff of at least 28%. And of that 28%, 95% of those costs will ultimately be borne by us, by consumers, by Connecticut families. You've also heard me talk about the small business I grew up in, Chinese restaurant not far from here, first in Hartford and in Wethersfield. I think about those small businesses. I think about restaurants. I think about mom and pop stores. Most of those small businesses, especially after COVID, are just hanging on. They're just hanging on. Their customers are just hanging on. And I think about people running a restaurant, how much pressure they're under, how much it now costs to buy meat and vegetables, particularly if you're an ethnic food restaurant, like a Chinese restaurant. A lot of that stuff comes from overseas, from China. And I know there's a lot of noise about what's going to happen with China, but we're still at a 145% tariff rate. The packaging, the little boxes, wine, liquor, beer, the pots and pans, the plates, all of that, and the pressure that it will put on those small businesses and their ability to stay open and to hold on to and employ the people that they employ. So why are we suing? We're suing because the president is hurting people here in Connecticut right now, but we're also suing because his actions are utterly unlawful, unconstitutional, unauthorized, whatever the word is. He's got no power to do this. Why I'm standing here with two of the strongest and most prominent leaders, not just in our delegation, but in the Senate and the House of the United States of America. And they know that this is my Constitution. That Article 1, Section 8 says that they have the power. Article 1, Section 8, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. Congress has the power over tariffs, not the president, period. And though Congress has at times delegated that authority, and other presidents have taken action with respect to tariffs, that includes, they do that under express delegation from Congress, and they exercise that power in coordination with Congress and according to the procedures that Congress prescribes. And so that's not true here. What's true here, or false, what the president is claiming is power under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. And I and my tax lawyer wife and attorneys general and others have had to learn what IEEPA means and what it does. Let me tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't authorize the president to levy tariffs. It says nothing about tariffs. And only when there is an unusual and extraordinary threat to our country and national security can he act. He hasn't made that showing. And even if you could make an argument that for certain countries that's true, it's not true for all of them. And so that's why this action is utterly unlawful, utterly unconstitutional, violates, this is not, by the way, Article 1, Section 8, for the non-lawyers, is not some obscure amendment somewhere. This is like in the first couple pages, okay? And this is what the founders meant, and this is how we have lived as a country for more than 200 years. I said when all of this began that I have a simple test as to whether Connecticut will take action. Number one, are families, are people, are residents in Connecticut being harmed and impacted? Yes, that's happening. Number two, do we have good claims and defenses? Yes, the president does not have the power, but Congress does. And he has utterly overstepped his authority. We have good claims and defenses. Number three, do we have standing? Yes, the state of Connecticut has standing. We are being hurt. Our people are being hurt. The state is being impacted and hurt. The effects are profound. And so because those three parts of the test has been satisfied, we are acting. Let me turn it over now to Senator Blumenthal and Representative Courtney. I want to say that I observed yesterday that Joe Courtney is the only lawyer in the House delegation. There are two lawyers in the Senate delegation. But both of them accomplished lawyers in their own right. You know, you guys might have to strap on a law license to get sued and jump in the same with me. But we are enormously, not just grateful, but lucky that we have two of the most respected members in the federal government and in the Congress leading the way for us. And with that, it's my honor to turn it over to the former Attorney General.
Thank you. Thank you to our great President, Attorney General, Billy Tom. just say thank you on behalf of the people of Connecticut. Thank you on behalf of our state and the entire country, really, for leading this effort, as William has done on other very courageous stands in court and proactive efforts to defend the interests of Connecticut. Now, I've sued the President of the United States when I had William Cobb. It isn't done lightly. It's a last resort. It's done because the harm is so grievous and urgent, and the law breaking is so clear and blatant that there's no choice but to go to court and say to the President of the United States, you are breaking the law. You are hurting people, you're harming the country, and you are creating a burden for the people of Connecticut whose well-being we represent. And so I want to thank William for undertaking this effort. I will tell you that I've talked to people around the state of Connecticut just today. I came from a grocery in New Haven, where I was with the head of the Food Retailers Association, Wayne Petty, and we were talking about how families are struggling to put food on the table, to pay their rent, to buy pharmaceutical drugs, and now they're going to be hit with this tsunami of price increases. And let's be precise. The Yale University Budget Lab has done exactly thorough research. And what they report is that the average American family will pay $4,700 more. That's right. $4,700 more as a result of these tariffs. Now, the President of the United States has said, I'm putting them on pause. Really? Not so much. 10% still across the board on our allies, on countries that make things we could never make. Bananas, coffee, we're not growing them in the United States. It is senseless, cruel, dumb. Senseless, cruel, dumb. Because ultimately, the ones who will pay this tax, and these tariffs are a tax, are the people least able to afford it. That $4,700 is spread across everybody's wallets and pocketbook. And so it means a lot more if you're the everyday American family as opposed to the millionaires and billionaires that Donald Trump has in mind when he thinks about financial ruin. And let me make one more point. Donald Trump says, we're going to make deals with these countries. He's made no deals. He's failed at deals, except the deals with selected companies and industries that amount to self-dealing. Tim Cook called Donald Trump and called in the chip that Donald Trump owed him because of the donations and the parties. And so Tim Cook succeeded in getting a special deal for electronics and semiconductors and other stuff that benefits Apple and similar companies. But talk to the guy who was in that grocery today, or to the other company I visited, a national security contractor whose device is essential to stop counterfeiting of parts that go into our defense products, and he's going to be paying more. The DOD will pay more. Taxpayers will pay more because of the impact of these tariffs on his business. Small businesses will be hit hard. Consumers will suffer hardship. And the economy is sliding toward recession. Recession. More joblessness, less GDP, higher prices. It is a recipe for disaster. amazingly, truly remarkably, it has bipartisan support. We have 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats now supporting this tariff measure, which says these taxes are illegal because they haven't been approved by the Congress. It's the same argument that our Attorney General is making in court, but we're going to be making it in the Congress, which truly, under the Constitution, has the power, just as it has the power to hurt. A lot of people are saying, well, what's unusual about Donald Trump breaking the law? What's remarkable about Trump or Musk violating the Constitution? And normalizing that law is absolutely unacceptable. We cannot tolerate a mindset that says it's okay because he has the executive power and he wants to say there's an emergency. There is no emergency that justifies these tariffs. Again, 10% across the board imposed on allies in Europe, as well as countries like Vietnam that will never have an exact balance with us and make things we can, or countries that send us bananas and coffee. We're not growing them in the United States. Cruel and dumb. That's what these tariffs are. And ultimately, they will bring hurt and hardship to the people of Connecticut in skyrocketing prices on the grocery shelves, at the gasoline stations, in the automobile showrooms, across the board, and possibly recession. And these kinds of self-deals that Trump is doing for certain companies and certain industry titans will benefit only himself and slide this country further toward an autocracy of billionaires, literally. An autocracy of billionaires who get their way with economic benefits, lower tariffs, special favors, because they have something the President of the United States wants. So we're going to fight this. I am proud to support Attorney General Tom, and I'm encouraged by the fact that we have a bipartisan bill because it reflects bipartisan support for stopping these tariffs. It affects red states and blue states, industries across the country, manufacturers and farmers. Everybody will, unfortunately, be deeply hurt.
So thank you, and really appreciate the invitation to join the Attorney General today and my colleague, Dick Blumenthal, in terms of this really, in my opinion, central issue that is dominating what we're hearing in our offices from constituents, and again, the ripple effect in terms of Trump's tariff policies, in terms of people's economic position, in terms of retirement accounts, what they're looking at in terms of higher prices, which we've already heard about. Just to add another lung to the fire, talking to the home builders in Connecticut, they're looking at a $9,000 increase for every house because of lumber costs, because of increased metal costs, and again, we're in a housing crisis that's bad enough as it is, and in terms of whether it's single-family homes or multi-unit housing, the impact in terms of just basic needs that people have is just going to worsen because of this really mindless policy that, again, is just a roller coaster every single day, creating uncertainty in the markets. And for the first time, I think really in our adult memory, we're seeing both the stock market, the bond market, and the dollar going downward at the same time. That is completely, if you talk to people who are working in the financial markets, usually if the stock market's going down, people move their investments into the bond market. What we're seeing now is investors leaving everything, and it's really just an avoid America sort of financial strategy that's being played out right now because of the instability and the uncertainty that now surrounds the leadership here in Washington, D.C. I want to again join thanking William for his amazing work, starting really almost on Inauguration Day, the first lawsuit by the Attorney General, which stopped the cutoff of funding, which would have just completely capsized state governments and Medicaid programs. Again, within a matter of about 48 hours or 72 hours, that lawsuit succeeded in terms of reversing that harmful decision, birthright citizenship, which is now making its way to the Supreme Court. The batting average of the Attorney Generals in terms of their exercise of a co-equal branch of government, the judicial arm of that's set forth in the Constitution, is really something that I think history is going to look back on really as just an incredibly important moment in terms of checking this executive order onslaught that is doing so much harm. Again, I want to just touch on a couple other reasons why I think that the harm exists in Connecticut because of these policies. Connecticut is an export-oriented state. I mean, if you look at our population, if you look at our geography, if you look at our gross domestic product that we produce in terms of goods and services, we have to have trade in terms of creating and maintaining the wealth that exists in this state. And one really, I think, very sort of concrete example of the harm that's being done in terms of our export excellence is in the area of aerospace. In 2023, the United States signed and Raytheon practically signed a contract with the country of Canada to sell 88 F-35 planes. It was a $19 billion contract. Lockheed Martin is the general contractor. Pratt & Whitney is the largest supplier into that program. Every engine that goes into the F-35 is built right here in Connecticut. The average sales price is between $40 and $60 million per engine. And what's happening right now, we have a Canadian election 5 days away, and we've already heard from the front runner, the incumbent Prime Minister, is that contract right now is going to be put under review and reconsideration because of the policies coming out of Washington. And what's happening at the same time is that Pratt & Whitney's competitors, Lockheed's competitors in Europe, or in Spain and France, they are knocking at the door in terms of trying to take advantage of a completely self-inflicted harm as a result of this administration. And Canada is not the only ally that is now going through this period of re-examination of just of their trading relationship and military sales relationship with the U.S. I co-chair the Friends of Australia Congress, probably our most loyal allies since World War I during the conflict. They fought with this country side by side. We have a trade surplus in Australia, 2-1 trade surplus with Australia. They have a 0% tariff in terms of U.S. goods sold into Australia. Nonetheless, as the Senator pointed out, they have been swept up in this tariff meeting out of the Trump administration. Steel and aluminum is produced in Australia, sold in the U.S. subject to a 25% tariff. And any other goods and services is subject to a 10% tariff. There was absolutely no justification under any theory that President Trump was putting out there in terms of the U.S. being ripped off or having trade deficits with countries who are taking advantage of us. We sell more to them, we export more to them than they export to us. And yet they are being targeted by this tariff policy. And why do I bring it up in the context of Connecticut? Is that in 2021, the United States entered into the AUKUS security agreement, which will call for the sale of 3 Virginia-class submarines in 2032, 2035, and 2038. And right now, they're having their own election. That's going to take place in 10 days. And right now, those same questions that are being asked in Canada are being asked in Australia about whether or not the U.S. is really an ally that they can rely on and that they have confidence in to make a country whose population is less than the state of Texas make a financial commitment of $400 billion in terms of the AUKUS agreement. That's something that they signed up for, but now, again, has become a political football in the national election that's taking place. This is totally unjustified, totally unnecessary, and as the Attorney General said, totally unconstitutional. It is time for the courts to step in, and it's time for Congress to exercise its constitutional duty with the legislation Senator Blumenthal was talking about. We have companion bills in the House, Senator Don Bacon, Republican from Nebraska, has also introduced legislation that, again, would take back the authority, particularly under the law that the Attorney General mentioned, the Emergency Powers Act, which again is screaming out for Congress to step in and really stop, this just needless economic car crash that the administration is causing. And again, it is so important for all of the states, particularly those who are very export sensitive, to step forward and stop the madness. And again, I want to thank the Attorney General for his leadership.
Thank you. Questions?
Attorney General, who is joining you in this lawsuit as far as the states go? And is there bipartisan representation there? If there's not, how is the discussion going with other attorneys generals to bring them into the
It's
fold?
only states led by Democratic attorneys general right now. It's Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Maine, Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, and Vermont, and this is being led by Oregon and Arizona.
And how are the discussions going with other states to try to bring them into the fold?
Look, obviously among the Democrats, we talk all the time, and some of us have their own reasons for not joining, but obviously 12 is a big number among Democrats. I've been asked many times since all this madness started, stop the madness indeed. Since this started, people have asked me, Mr. Attorney General, what do you need, in this fight? And, of course, we need people, we need lawyers, and we need resources. We need Republicans. We need Republicans to stand up, to do the right thing. The Senate Republicans standing with Senator Blumenthal, Don Bacon, who's been more and more vocal over the past few weeks. We need Republicans to stand up. I was attacked yesterday by the Republican State Party chair. Stand with us. Why won't you fight for Connecticut and Connecticut families? Why don't you stand up to this lawlessness and this unconstitutional, attack on all of us and our families? We need Republicans, so the door is open to my Republican colleagues. We've actually had conversations about this. They see it, they get it, they know it. We need them to join us. The door is wide open for them to join us.
Attorney General, you had cited a few numbers there, 87% more for shoes, 65% for clothes. Can you say where those numbers came from?
Yeah, that's from the Yale Budget Lab.
Okay, so are these projections or are these actual things that have happened
I
already?
think these are a combination of projections and analysis of occurrences on the ground.
Okay.
What they have done is they've done a very detailed study, very scientific, methodical, reliable, understated, if anything, about what the damage would be, and they've said $4,700 for the average American family based on these projected increases. In fact, they have estimated them over time, what the immediate increase will be, and then what the more lasting or long-term increase in prices will be. And there will be both an immediate impact and a longer-term impact, because once the supply chain is disrupted, what have we learned from COVID? Once you break the supply chain, you can't just turn it on in an instant. And already, our customers in other countries are looking around for other sources of the products that we would export. Already, our companies are looking around for other sources of materials that they need at higher prices. But they've got to contract for longer periods of time. They can't just say, well, send us your stuff for as long as these tariffs go on. Nobody knows how long the tariffs would be. And I would just make two quick points. First of all, one of the most destructive impacts of these tariffs is the uncertainty and instability that they create. I've never seen the stock market go up and down and up and down. The bond market is gyrating. Companies tell me, we don't know how to plan or invest. The tariffs are on one day, they're off the next. That means no investment, no new plants to manufacture stuff, no new workers hired, workers laid off without any idea of whether they'll be hired back. the instability is just insidious in economic terms. There's no greater evil in an economy than uncertainty and instability, because it prevents business people from planning. And on the issue of Republican AGs, I think these tariffs are going to be the president's Achilles heel. I think that Republicans have to be reaching the breaking point when they go home and they talk to farmers or small business people or folks who work for manufacturing companies. And yeah, they love Donald Trump's style of let's break things, disrupt, change everything, but not at these kinds of costs. And so I think we will see increasing numbers of Republicans, AGs, as well as members of Congress, say, you know, the emperor has no clothes here. He's about to take us over a cliff. We don't want to be held accountable for it. And I think that should happen. I can't say it will, but the law is on our side. The economy is on our side. History is on our side. Smooth hauling helped to drive this country into the Great Depression. Smooth hauling was the tariff act back in the 1920s because it so disrupted the whole global economy back then. And it's held as a kind of case study and lesson for business school people. Donald Trump went to business school. I think he should know better, but he's had this obsession for decades.
I think it's also really important to know that even if he pauses, pulls back, cuts a deal with China, who knows, right? Every day, because he's feeling the heat, it's obvious. Even if they change course, the damage is done, right? Not just the uncertainty and the unpredictability. People have already made choices and decisions about their purchasing, about their investment, about their physical plant and the factories, about employees, who they're going to keep, who they're going to lay off. I saw a program on CNN, and they had two, Wall Street experts. Orders for Christmas for toys have already been placed, or they're being placed now. People have to make decisions months and years ahead. I was just at Electric Boat. I think I learned that in the Virginia class submarine, or at least the Columbia class, is a 40-year, life cycle. They can't turn on a dime. If you tell them steel's going to cost X, for the foreseeable future, they have to make decisions based on that. And they're doing it.
Yeah, the input costs, just in terms of shipbuilding right now, we make in America requirements for U.S. Navy vessels. Some people think insulates the cost from tariffs, but the fact of the matter is that the market, spills over whether it's domestic. There's no neat, clean sort of demarcation between domestic and foreign steel. In addition to that, in Navy ships, they use a nickel alloy for the hulls as part of the steel because that hardens, the exterior of it. And we import almost all of our nickel from Canada. Uranium, which powers the reactors, we really have almost no uranium mines in the country. So again, most of it comes in right now. It used to come in from Russia and Canada, but lately it's just from Canada. And lastly, cotton, which is just throughout the entire vessel, which we have almost no copper mining in the U.S. right now, so that's also important. So the input costs are already, going to affect contracts, which are fixed price contracts when they're signed, and the industry's going to come back and just say, you have to help us, Congress, in terms of covering these costs, because it was totally out of their control, and they're going to have an actual argument to make as far as that goes.
And I think that, you can get too wrapped up in all the details, and Joe is absolutely right, but William is making a really large and important point, which is a great nation needs trust. We are destroying our trust around the world. We are becoming one of the most unstable nations as opposed to one of the most reliable. feel it most. Our adversaries like Russia and China are celebrating. And we're becoming like a clown show where the clowns have real guns with real ammunition and they are shooting at all of us. So it's, you know, it's a matter of trust.
And there's still no tariff on Russia.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Quick question, do we have a number on the bills at all that you had mentioned?
I can get it for you.
Thank you. One more thing, we had some administration say that these tariffs have brought countries to the table. I think the last number that was thrown out was around 18. What is your reaction to people who argue this is a good business?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
So there are people who are arguing this is a good business approach because the administration has said, I think, around 18 countries have come to negotiations with them. What is your reaction to that?
Countries are coming to us pleading for relief, but there have been no deals. The only deals approved by Donald Trump are with the big tech companies and the billionaires who want to do deals that help him, not the country. There are countries coming forward asking for relief, but there are no deals yet. And the prospect of deals seems to be receding rather than increasing because, frankly, there's no strategy.
Yeah, I would just, in Trump 1.0, again, Australia was also swept up in the initial round of tariffs. Once the Australian government had a chance to actually talk to the White House and explain that, again, there is no trade deficit, there are no tariffs on U.S. exports into Australia, they dropped the tariff. That happened already, because the initial announcement Australia was going to get hit was in February. The Prime Minister called them personally. The MC has been in and out of the White House saying nothing has changed. You're still winning the trade, balance between the two countries, and they have not budged an inch. And really, there's absolutely, and 25% on steel and aluminum.
Right, 25, yes.
So it's, again, despite the fact that countries have come forward and tried to make their case, this Trump 2.0 is going to be dominated by different cast of characters who are zealots. Peter Navarro, Howard Lippman. These are people who are not regarded as really qualified to be advising the largest economy in the world on trade policy. It's a joke.
And let me just close by saying you can offer whatever justifications or whatever explanations to countries, 25 countries, I don't really care. Ask the people of Connecticut whether it's making a difference to them or whether they're getting punished right now. Go out there, ask Connecticut families, we see them every day. They're getting crushed right now. So I don't care what countries knock on the door. He has done untold damage to the people of this state, and that's all. Thank you.